The quiet after the battle felt strange and heavy. Do-hyun held Baram gently, feeling the honey badger's rapid heartbeat slowly returning to normal. All around them, the red rocks were scorched with energy weapon burns and stained with alien blood. The air smelled of burning fur and hot metal. Do-hyun's hands shook as he carefully examined his friend's injuries. Burns covered parts of Baram's body where the energy bolts had grazed him. Some of his fur was completely burned away, showing red, angry skin beneath. But even as the boy watched, the wounds seemed to be healing, the redness fading slightly. "We need to get you home," Do-hyun said, his voice thick with emotion. "Hyunsik will know what to do." But before they could move, a new sound reached them. It was a deep thrumming, a vibration in the air that made the rocks tremble. Both boy and badger looked up to see something descending from the orange sky. The Vraxian ship was coming. The blood prize dropped through the thin atmosphere like a predator swooping on prey. Its dark hull reflected the light of the twin suns, and its engines glowed with violet fire. The vessel was much larger than Do-hyun had imagined, bigger than any of the transports that visited New Seoul Station. The ship did not land. Instead, it hovered about 50 meters above the rocky outcrop, its weapons ports opening like hungry mouths. A boarding ramp extended from its belly, and figures began descending on individual gravity platforms. More Vraxian warriors. 6 of them, fresh and uninjured, coming to reinforce their commander. Do-hyun felt his heart sink. Baram had fought so bravely, had defeated so many enemies, but he was wounded and tired. How could they possibly survive against even more attackers? Baram, however, did not seem to share the boy's despair. The honey badger pulled himself from Do-hyun's arms and stood on shaky legs, placing himself once again between the boy and the approaching threats. His body language spoke of determination that bordered on stubbornness. He would fight until he could not fight anymore. That was what honey badgers did. That was what he had been made to do. The fresh warriors landed in a semicircle, cutting off escape routes. They had learned from their comrades' mistakes. They kept their distance and kept their weapons ready. These were not going to be taken by surprise. Raktos descended last, his armor dented and scratched from the earlier battle. His yellow eyes fixed on Baram with something that might have been respect mixed with hatred. The commander's pride had been wounded more badly than his body. A hunter of his status defeated by a creature that weighed less than his weapon. "Impressive, small beast," Raktos said, his rough voice carrying across the rocks. "You have killed 3 of my warriors and injured 6 more. In my culture, such a fighter would be honored. But you have interfered with a sacred hunt, and for that you must die." He turned to the fresh warriors. "Do not try to capture it. Do not get close. Simply burn it from a distance." The 6 warriors raised their energy rifles, all aimed at Baram. The honey badger's enhanced brain calculated angles, distances, possibilities. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. His tired body could not dodge 6 simultaneous shots, but he did not need to dodge them all. He only needed to protect Do-hyun. Baram moved just as they fired, not away from the shots but toward Do-hyun. His small body covered the boys as energy bolts struck the ground all around them. One bolt hit Baram directly in the shoulder, burning deep into muscle and bone. The honey badger made no sound, did not cry out in pain, only held his position over his boy. "Stop!" Do-hyun screamed, his voice breaking. "You're hurting him, stop!" But the Vraxians did not stop. They fired again, and again Baram took the hits meant for Do-hyun. The honey badger's enhanced healing could only work so fast. His injuries were accumulating faster than his modified cells could repair them. Raktos watched with cold satisfaction. The creature is brave, but bravery means nothing against superior firepower. Soon it will fall, and then we will take you, human child. Do-hyun felt hot tears running down his face. This was his fault. If he had not wandered so far from the colony, if he had been more careful, Baram would not be dying to protect him. His friend, his best friend, was being killed because of his mistakes. "Please," Do-hyun begged the aliens. "Take me if you want. Just don't hurt him anymore, please." For a moment, something flickered in Raktos's eyes. Was it understanding, pity? But it passed quickly, replaced again by the cold determination of a hunter. "Fire again," he ordered. The warriors raised their weapons for another volley. Baram, barely conscious from pain and blood loss, still tried to cover Do-hyun with his small body. The boy closed his eyes, waiting for the end. The energy bolts never came. Instead, a different sound split the air. It was sharp and loud, a crack that echoed across the wasteland. One of the Vraxian warriors stumbled and fell, a smoking hole in his chest plate. Everyone turned to see a vehicle racing across the red dirt, dust flying up behind it. Standing in the vehicle's bed was Hyunsik, and in his hands was an old military rifle that he had not fired in years. The old engineer's aim was still perfect. "Get away from that boy." Hyunsik roared and fired again. Another Vraxian fell, this one hit in the leg. The electromagnetic rounds from Hyunsik's rifle punched through the aliens' shields and armor like they were paper. Behind Hyunsik's vehicle came more transports, carrying colonists from New Sol Station. Someone had noticed the alien ship. Someone had sounded the alarm. And the people of the colony had responded with everything they had. Miners carried plasma cutters meant for stone. Engineers wielded industrial lasers designed for precision work, but deadly at close range. Security guards brought their small arsenal of weapons. These were not soldiers, just ordinary people defending their home and their children. The Vraxians suddenly found themselves outnumbered and facing an angry mob of humans who had no intention of letting them take one of their. Young Raktos realized the situation had completely fallen apart. What should have been a simple snatch-and-grab hunt had become a war. His warriors were injured, his prey was protected by a creature that should not exist, and now an entire human settlement was mobilizing against them. "Back to the ship," he commanded. "Fighting retreat!" The Vraxians began backing toward the gravity platforms that would lift them to their vessel. They fired at the approaching colonists, trying to create space, but the humans kept coming. One colonist fell, hit by an energy bolt, but others dragged him to safety while returning fire. Hyunsik's vehicle skidded to a stop near Dohyun and Baram. The old man jumped out and ran to them, his face showing fear and relief in equal measure. "Dohyun, are you hurt?" "I'm okay, but Baram." The boy's voice broke as he looked at his wounded friend. Hyunsik gently picked up the honey badger. Baram's eyes opened briefly, recognized his human family, and closed again. His breathing was shallow and rapid. The old engineer's face went pale as he assessed the damage. "We need to get him to the medical center now." But the Vraxians were not retreating fast enough. More colonists arrived, surrounding the area. Someone had brought a vehicle-mounted mining laser, powerful enough to cut through ship hulls. They aimed it at the blood prize, and the Vraxian pilot was forced to pull the ship back to avoid damage. Raktos and his remaining warriors reached their gravity platforms and began rising toward the ship. The commander looked down at the scene below. The dead and wounded, the determined humans, the small creature that had caused so much destruction. "This is not over." Raktos transmitted on the humans' common frequency. "We will return. The hunt continues." Hyunsik looked up at the retreating alien, his eyes hard. He raised his rifle one more time and fired. The shot missed Raktos but struck the gravity platform beneath him, causing it to spark and malfunction. The commander barely made it to the ship's boarding ramp before the platform gave out. The blood prize pulled higher into the atmosphere, its engines straining. The ship had taken damage during the battle, and smoke trailed from several hull breaches, but it was still spaceworthy, still capable of escape. On the ground, the colonists watched it climb toward the orange sky. Someone fired the mining laser, and the beam struck the ship's port engine. More smoke poured out, and the vessel began to list to one side. Inside the medical center, Hyunsik laid Baram on an examination table while the colony's veterinarian, a woman named Yunji, rushed to help. She had treated sick animals before, but nothing like this. The wounds were severe, the burns deep. "What is he?" Yunji asked, amazed that the creature was still alive with such injuries. "He's enhanced," Hyunsik explained quickly. "Military bioweapon program from years ago. He has accelerated healing, but I don't know if it's enough for this." Dohyun stood nearby, watching with terrified eyes as Yunji worked on his friend. The honey badger's chest barely moved with each breath. His enhanced body was trying to heal, but there were limits even to genetic modifications. Outside, the blood prize struggled to reach orbit. The ship's captain knew they were in trouble. The damage was extensive and human weapons were still targeting them from the ground. They needed to escape, needed to jump to hyperspace, but jumping while in the planet's gravity well was dangerous. The ship could tear itself apart. Yet staying meant being captured or destroyed. Raktos made the decision. "Jump now," the captain hesitated. "Commander, we're too close to the planet." The gravitational stress. The rocky outcrop had become a battlefield. Two Vraxian warriors lay on the ground, one dead and one dying. Dark green blood pooled on the red rocks, creating strange patterns in the dust. The remaining aliens stared at the small creature that had caused such destruction in mere seconds. Baram stood over Do-hyun's fallen form, his body tense and ready. The honey badger's chest heaved with rapid breaths, not from exhaustion but from the massive amounts of combat chemicals flooding his enhanced system. His eyes, normally dark and gentle when looking at his boy, now burned with pure primal fury. The genetic modifications that human scientists had given him were working exactly as designed. Though those scientists had hoped such features would never be needed, Baram's heart pumped faster than any normal animal's could, delivering oxygen and nutrients to muscles that had been strengthened at the cellular level. His nervous system operated at triple normal speed, making his reactions impossibly quick. But it was not just the physical changes that made him dangerous. The scientist had also enhanced his brain, giving him problem-solving abilities far beyond what nature had intended for a honey badger. And honey badgers, even normal ones, were already known as some of the most fearless and stubborn creatures on Earth. They fought lions. They raided beehives despite thousands of stings. They never backed down, never surrendered, never stopped fighting. Now take that natural fearlessness and multiply it with genetic enhancements. Add superhuman strength and speed to a compact, low-slung body that was hard to hit, and give it an intelligence that could understand tactics and predict enemy movements. The result was Baram, a living weapon that loved a small boy more than life itself. Rakdos took a step back, re-evaluating the situation. His communicator crackled as the other teams responded to his call for help. 6 more warriors were on their way, but they were still minutes away. He had to survive those minutes. "Weapons free!" Rakdos ordered the 2 warriors still standing with him. "Kill the creature." The Vraxians raised their energy rifles and fired. Bolts of superheated plasma streaked toward Baram. The honey badger moved, his enhanced brain calculating trajectories faster than conscious thought. He dodged left and a bolt hit the rock where he had been standing, causing it to explode in a shower of molten stone. Baram zigzagged, never moving in a straight line, never staying in one place for more than a heartbeat. The Vraxians tried to track him, their weapons spitting fire, but they could not land a solid hit. A few glancing shots scorched his fur, burning his skin, but the pain only made him angrier. The honey badger's enhanced pain tolerance was perhaps the most terrifying of his modifications. Normal animals would flee from such injuries. Baram barely noticed them. His body was already working to heal the burns. Accelerated cellular regeneration knitting damaged tissue back together even as he fought. One warrior made the mistake of getting too close, thinking his size would be an advantage in close combat. Baram proved him wrong in the most brutal way possible. The honey badger leapt, not at the Vraxian's throat this time, but at his knee. Powerful jaws closed on the joint, crushing through armor and bone with a sickening crunch. The warrior fell, howling in pain. Baram was already moving, releasing his grip and targeting the fallen alien's weapon hand. The Vraxian dropped his rifle as small teeth crushed the bones of his fingers. Before the others could react, Baram grabbed the fallen weapon in his mouth and dragged it away, denying the enemy a tool they could use. Rakdos watched in growing horror as his hunting party was destroyed by a creature that weighed maybe 20 kilograms. This was impossible. This defied everything he knew about prey species and their pets. What had the humans done to this animal? Behind them all, Do-hyun's head was clearing. The effects of the sonic disruptor were fading, and the boy could think again. He pushed himself up on his elbows and saw the battle unfolding around him. His heart swelled with pride and fear for his small friend. "Baram," he called out, his voice weak but full of love. The honey badger's ear twitched at the sound of his boy's voice. For just a moment his fierce expression softened. He glanced back at Do-hyun, checking that the boy was safe, and in that moment of distraction, Rakdos made his move. The Vraxian commander was not just any warrior. He had survived dozens of hunts, faced dangerous prey on many worlds. He knew when to press an advantage. His hand moved to his belt and pulled out a device different from the others, something he saved for emergencies. He threw the device at Baram. It was a shock grenade, designed to release an electromagnetic pulse that could stun most living creatures. The device hit the ground next to the honey badger and exploded in a flash of blue light. Electricity arced through the air, catching Baram in its field. The honey badger's muscles locked up, His enhanced nervous system overloaded by the electromagnetic energy. He fell to his side, twitching, his small body racked with pain as the shock ran through him. "No," Do-Yun screamed, finding his voice at last. Rakdos moved forward quickly, energy rifle pointed at the fallen honey badger. "Stay down, beast, or I will burn you to ash." But even as electricity coursed through his body, even as every nerve screamed in agony, Bahram's enhanced healing factor was working. The genetic modifications that allowed him to recover from injuries also protected him from effects that would have killed normal animals. His cells began adapting to the electrical assault, his body developing resistance even as it happened. The shock grenade's effects lasted 15 seconds, but Bahram was standing again after 10. Smoke rose from his burned fur. His legs shook from the trauma, but his eyes still burned with that terrible intelligence and rage. Rakdos stared in disbelief.
"What are you?"
Bahram answered with a growl that sounded almost like human words, a trick of his enhanced vocal cords and modified throat structure. It was a sound that carried all his fury, all his promise of violence to anyone who threatened his boy. The other Vraxian warriors arrived, 6 fresh fighters joining their commander. They saw their dead and wounded comrades, saw the small creature that had caused such destruction, and hesitated despite their training. "Surround it," Rakdos ordered. "Keep your distance and fire together. Nothing can survive concentrated fire from 9 energy rifles." The warriors spread out in a circle around Bahram, keeping the honey badger away from Do-Hyun. The boy tried to crawl toward his friend, but one warrior pointed his rifle at the child. "Stay where you are, small human, or we kill you both." Bahram's enhanced brain assessed the situation. 9 enemies, all armed, all at a distance. He was injured, tired, and the sedative was still partly in his system, fighting against his enhanced metabolism. The tactical part of his modified mind knew the odds were bad, but the part that loved Do-Hyun did not care about odds. The honey badger charged at the nearest warrior, using his small size and low profile to stay under the angle of their weapons. Energy bolts filled the air above him, but he was already too close. He reached the warrior's leg and did what honey badgers do best. He latched on and would not let go. The warrior screamed and fell. The circle broke as others rushed to help their comrade. In the confusion, Bahram released his grip and ran not away from the fight but toward it. He went for another warrior, then another, always moving, always attacking, turning the battle into chaos where their numbers and weapons meant less. Rakdos realized his mistake. By trying to surround the creature, they had given it multiple targets and created confusion. The small animal was using their own formation against them. "Fall back," he shouted. "Create distance." But it was too late. Bahram had disabled 3 more warriors in as many seconds. The honey badger's enhanced stamina seemed endless, his rage inexhaustible. For every wound they inflicted on him, he inflicted 3 on them. Do-Hyun watched his friend fight with tears streaming down his face. He had never seen Bahram like this, had never imagined that his gentle companion could be so fierce, so unstoppable. Part of him was terrified by the violence. Part of him had never loved the honey badger more. Rakdos made a decision. This hunt had gone wrong in every possible way. Pride was not worth dying for. Honor meant nothing if you were dead. "Retreat to the ship," he commanded. "Fighting retreat, move." The Vraxians began backing away, firing as they went to keep Bahram at bay. They grabbed their wounded, leaving only the dead behind. The containment field generator was abandoned in their haste. Bahram pursued them for 50 meters, then stopped. His enhanced brain recognized that chasing them further would mean leaving Do-Hyun unprotected. The boy was more important than revenge. The honey badger turned and limped back to where Do-Hyun sat. The boy opened his arms and Bahram collapsed into them, finally allowing himself to feel the pain of his many wounds. His fur was burned and bloody. His breathing came in harsh gasps. "You saved me," Do-Hyun whispered, hugging his friend gently. "You saved me, Bahram." The honey badger made a soft chirping sound, his usual voice returning now that the danger was past. His enhanced metabolism was already working to heal his injuries, but it would take time. In the distance, they could hear the Vraxian warriors calling for emergency extraction. Their ship would come for them soon. But for now, boy and badger sat together on the red rocks, holding each other. Neither of them knew that the battle was far from over. Do-Hyun sat on the red boulder, swinging his legs and humming a song he had learned in school. The twin suns felt warm on his face, and a gentle breeze carried dust across the rocky landscape. He loved this spot, so quiet and peaceful, far enough from the noisy colony to feel like his own secret place. Behind him, in the small carrier box, Bahram slept heavily. The sedative had finally won its battle against the honey badger's stubborn consciousness. His enhanced body fought the medicine, his modified metabolism working to break down the chemicals faster than a normal animal could. But for now, he drifted in a deep sleep filled with confused dreams. The first sign that something was wrong came as a shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from hot ground. But the day was not that warm, and the shimmer moved in ways that heat waves did not. Do-Yun noticed it from the corner of his eye and turned to look directly at it. The shimmer solidified into a shape. A figure appeared where nothing had been moments before, tall and terrible, covered in green scales that caught the orange sunlight. Yellow eyes with vertical slits stared down at the small human boy. A mouth full of sharp teeth opened in what might have been a smile. Do-Hyun's heart stopped for a moment, then began racing so fast he could hear it pounding in his ears. He had never seen anything like this creature before. It was not human, not like any animal he knew. It was something alien, something dangerous, something that his young mind could not fully process. "Do not be afraid, small human," Rakdos said in broken Terran Standard, the common language of human colonies. His voice was rough, filled with clicks and hisses that his reptilian mouth was not designed to make. "You are chosen for great honor. You will be part of Sacred Hunt." More shimmers appeared around the rocks. 1, 2, 3 more tall alien figures materialized, surrounding the boulder where Do-Hyun sat frozen in fear. The boy wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to call for Hyunsik. But his voice would not work and his legs would not move. One of the Vraxian warriors, Thrak, raised a device that looked like a twisted piece of black metal. He pointed it at Do-Hyun and activated it. A sound erupted from the device, but it was not a sound that human ears were meant to hear. It was too low, too deep, vibrating through bone and tissue rather than traveling through air. Do-Hyun felt the sonic wave hit him like a physical force. The world began to spin. His vision blurred and doubled. His ears filled with a terrible ringing that blocked out all other sounds. Nausea rose in his stomach and he felt himself falling forward off the boulder. Strong, scaled hands caught him before he hit the ground. Rakdos held the boy easily, studying him with those cold yellow eyes. The child was small, weak, barely conscious from the sonic attack. Perfect. No challenge at all. "Activate the containment field," Rakdos ordered. Another warrior pressed buttons on a device at his belt. A soft humming began, growing louder until it became a high-pitched whine just at the edge of hearing. An invisible dome of energy formed around the rocky area, a barrier that would block any communication signals from getting out and would prevent anything from leaving the perimeter. Do-Hyun tried to focus his eyes, tried to understand what was happening, but the sonic disruptor had done its work well. His thoughts moved like thick mud, slow and confused. He saw the alien's face above him, felt the cold touch of scaled hands, but it all seemed unreal, like a nightmare he could not wake from. "Please," he managed to whisper, the only word he could form. "Please." Rakdos tilted his head, studying the child's face. He had hunted many species, seen many expressions of fear, but something about the human's eyes bothered him. It was not the fear he expected. Even through the confusion caused by the sonic attack, there was something else in those young eyes. Defiance, perhaps, or hope, or trust in something beyond the child's own power. "Your people will not find you for many hours," Rakdos explained, enjoying the traditional speech that hunters gave their prey. "We will be far away before they know you are gone. You should feel honored. Not all prey is worthy of our attention." Behind the group, still inside the carrier box attached to Do-Hyun's fallen backpack, something was beginning to change. The sedative that had put Bahram into such a deep sleep was being consumed by the honey badger's enhanced metabolism. The modified adrenal glands that scientists had placed in his small body began releasing chemicals, fighting against the medicine, burning through it faster than should be possible. Bahram's eyes moved beneath closed lids. His paws twitched. Deep in his brain, the primitive part that lived only to protect and fight began to wake. Thrak noticed the backpack and walked over to examine it. "The child carried supplies, Commander. Should we check for tracking devices?" "Do it quickly." We leave in 2 minutes. Thrak reached for the backpack, his clawed hand passing within inches of the carrier box. Inside, Baram's nose twitched. A scent reached him even through the fog of medication. It was a scent he did not recognize, something reptilian and cold, something that did not belong near his boy. The honey badger's heart rate increased. More chemicals flooded his system. The genetic modifications that military scientists had given him were designed to activate in situations of extreme stress, and his enhanced body recognized this as exactly that kind of situation. Do-hyun, still held in Rakdos's arms, managed to turn his head slightly. Through his blurred vision, he saw his backpack on the ground, saw the carrier box, saw that Baram was not visible. Fresh tears formed in his eyes. His friend was asleep, could not help him, could not save him. "Baram," he whispered, so quietly that the aliens did not hear. But Baram heard. That single word, spoken with such sadness and fear, cut through the last layers of medication clouding the honey badger's mind. His eyes snapped open. His vision was sharp and clear despite the drugs in his system, and what he saw through the mesh of the carrier box made every enhanced instinct in his small body scream for action. Aliens, strangers, predators, they had his boy. They were hurting his boy. The scent of Do-hyun's fear filled the air, a smell that Baram's sensitive nose detected even from inside the box. Something primal and terrible awakened in the honey badger. The genetic modifications that scientists had feared, the enhancements that had caused the whole program to be shut down, activated fully for the first time since Baram was a puppy. His muscles tensed, filling with strength far beyond what a normal honey badger possessed. His claws extended, each one sharp as a knife and hard as steel. Another gift from the scientists. His jaw ached as muscles there swelled with power capable of crushing bone. His mind, already more intelligent than any normal animal, became focused on a single purpose with absolute clarity. Protect Do-hyun. Kill anything that threatened Do-hyun. Thrak reached for the zipper on the carrier box, curious about what was inside. He had no idea he was about to make the last mistake of his life. The carrier box exploded outward. Fabric tore. Metal clasps snapped. Baram launched himself from the box with such speed that he became a blur of black and white fur. The Vraxian warrior had time to see something small and fast coming at his face. Time to start raising his hand in defense, but no time to actually protect himself. Baram's jaws clamped onto Thrak's throat with the force of a hydraulic press. The honey badger's enhanced bite strength, capable of crushing metal, tore through the Vraxian's natural scale armor like it was paper. Blood, dark green and thick, sprayed across the red rocks. Thrak made a gurgling sound and stumbled backward, clawing uselessly at the small creature attached to his throat. His claws scraped against Baram's thick hide, but could not penetrate the honey badger's natural defenses, made even stronger by genetic modification. The other Vraxians stood frozen for a critical second, their brains unable to process what they were seeing. The small pet, the creature they had dismissed as completely harmless, had just killed one of their warriors in less than 3 seconds. Rakdos dropped Do-hyun, letting the boy fall to the ground as the commander reached for his weapon. But even his trained reflexes were too slow. Baram released the dying Thrak and launched himself at the next nearest threat. The second Vraxian warrior managed to raise his arm to protect his throat. Baram's jaws closed on the limb instead, and the sound of breaking bone echoed across the rocks. The warrior screamed, a high-pitched hiss of agony, and tried to shake the honey badger off. Baram held on with the grip of a creature that had evolved to fight animals much larger than itself. To hang on no matter what. To never let go until the threat was eliminated. His back claws raked at the Vraxian's chest, finding gaps in the armor, tearing through scales and flesh. Rakdos finally got his weapon clear and fired. An energy bolt sizzled through the air, missing Baram by inches as the honey badger released the second warrior and dodged with impossible agility. The creature's enhanced reflexes, products of careful genetic engineering, made him almost impossible to hit. Do-hyun lay on the ground, his head slowly clearing. Through his fading confusion, he saw Baram fighting, saw his small friend facing creatures 10 times his size. The boy wanted to help, wanted to do something, but his body still would not obey his commands. Baram positioned himself between Do-hyun and the remaining aliens. His fur was soaked with green blood. His eyes burned with an intelligence and rage that made even the trained Vraxian warriors hesitate. This was not Seoul. The morning came cold and bright to Taeyang 7. Do-yoon woke to find Bahram already awake, sitting by the window and staring at the orange sky. The badger's ears were pointed forward, alert in a way that seemed unusual even for him. "What's wrong, Bahram?" Do-yoon asked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The badger turned his head and made a low rumbling sound. Not quite a growl, but not his usual friendly chirp either. Something felt different to him, though he could not explain what. His enhanced instincts, gifts from the scientists who had changed him, whispered warnings he did not fully understand. Hyunsik was already awake, making breakfast in the kitchen. The smell of cooking rice and eggs filled the small apartment. When Do-hyun came out with Bahram following close behind, the old man noticed the badger's unusual behavior. "Is he sick?" Hyunsik asked, concerned. "I don't think so. He just seems worried about something." Hyunsik knelt down and examined Bahram carefully, checking his eyes, ears, and nose. Everything seemed normal. Maybe he sensed a storm coming. Animals sometimes know about weather before we do. But it was not a storm that Bahram sensed. In orbit above the planet, the Vraxian hunting ship had finished its preparations. The vessel was called the Blood Prize, a name that reflected its dark purpose. The ship was painted in colors that helped it hide against the black of space, and its hull was covered with advanced technology that could make it invisible to most sensors. Commander Raktos stood on the bridge, his tall reptilian form casting a long shadow. His scales were deep green with red markings that showed his rank and hunting achievements. His eyes, yellow with vertical slits for pupils, studied the holographic display showing New Sol Station below. "The settlement has minimal defenses," reported his second-in-command, a smaller Vraxian named Thrak. "Their security systems are old models, easy to disable. They have no military presence, only civilian guards with basic weapons." Raktos nodded, slowly, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air, a habit from his species' evolutionary past. "Perfect. We will take the young one I selected. A human child will bring me great honor among our people." The Vraxians were not evil in their own eyes. Their culture had evolved on a harsh world where only the strongest survived. Hunting was not just sport for them, but a sacred tradition, a way to prove worth and gain respect. To them, capturing intelligent prey from other species was the highest form of this tradition. But they did not understand humans. They did not know the fierce protection that humans showed toward their young. They thought of humans as they thought of other species they had hunted, weak, emotional creatures who would panic and scatter when faced with superior predators. "Prepare the hunting party," Raktos ordered. "We go down at midday when the suns are highest and the humans are busy with their work. Take 12 warriors. We will surround the target and extract him quickly." Thrak bowed his head in acknowledgement. "And if the adults interfere, Commander?" "Use sonic disruptors to disable them, but do not kill unless necessary. We are hunters, not murderers. We take our prey and leave. The Federation will protest, but by the time they respond, we will be gone." The Vraxians had done this many times before on many worlds. They knew how to move quickly, how to avoid military response, how to disappear before anyone could stop them. Their technology was advanced, their warriors were trained, and they were confident in their abilities. Down on the planet, life in New Sol Station continued normally. Miners headed to their shifts in the deep tunnels. Engineers maintained the equipment. Children attended school in the education dome. No one knew that predators watched them from above. Do-hyun went to his morning classes, but Bahram was not allowed inside the school dome. Hyunsik had built a small shelter outside where the badger could wait, a comfortable box with shade and water. Normally, Bahram would sleep during these hours, but today he paced restlessly, his claws clicking against the metal floor. The schoolteacher, a kind woman named Mirai, noticed Do-hyun staring out the window at his pet. "Is something wrong, Do-hyun? Bahram is acting strange today. He seems nervous." Mirai smiled. "Animals can be moody, just like people. I'm sure he's fine. Now please pay attention to the lesson." But Bahram was not fine. Every minute his unease grew stronger. The enhanced instincts that the military scientists had given him were screaming warnings. Danger was coming. Threat was near. His primitive brain enhanced but still rooted in the fierce survival instincts of honey badgers prepared for a fight he could not yet see. At noon, the Vraxian ship descended through the atmosphere, its cloaking technology making it invisible to the colony's sensors. The vessel landed in a rocky canyon 5 kilometers from New Sol Station, hidden from view by tall stone formations. Raktos gathered his hunting party in the ship's deployment bay. 12 Vraxian warriors stood ready, each one tall and muscular, covered in scales that acted as natural armor. They wore additional protective gear and carried weapons that could stun or kill. On their belts hung devices for tracking, communicating, and creating energy barriers. "Remember," Raktos addressed his team, "we seek the young human male who lives in Residential Dome 3. Intelligence shows he often goes outside the safe zone boundary in the afternoon with his small pet. We will wait for this opportunity and take him there, away from witnesses and help." The warriors nodded, their yellow eyes gleaming with anticipation. This was what they lived for, what their culture celebrated. The hunt was everything. They moved, out in formation, using their cloaking devices to become nearly invisible. Only a slight shimmer in the air marked their passage across the rocky wasteland. They were skilled hunters, patient and careful, and they had studied their prey's habits for days. Back at the colony, lunch break arrived. Do-hyun rushed out of the school dome to check on Baram. The badger immediately stood up and pressed against the boy, making worried sounds. "It's okay, boy," Do-hyun said, hugging his companion. "I'm here now." But Baram was not comforted. He could smell something wrong on the wind, something his enhanced senses detected that human noses could not. He growled toward the east, toward the rocky canyons where the Vraxian ship was hidden. Hyunsik came by during his lunch break to check on them. He saw Baram's agitated state and frowned. "Maybe we should take him to the veterinarian. This is not normal behavior for him." "Can we go this afternoon?" Do-hyun asked. "After school?" "Yes, I'll arrange it, but right now you need to get back to class and I need to return to work." Do-hyun hugged Baram one more time before heading back inside. The badger watched him go, whining softly, every fiber of his being wanting to follow and protect. But the door closed and Baram was left outside, pacing and worrying. The Vraxians reached their position by early afternoon. They spread out in a wide circle around the area where their intelligence said the boy often played. The rocky outcrop was perfect for an ambush, far enough from the colony that no one would see what happened, but close enough that the child felt safe going there. Raktos checked his equipment one final time. The sonic disruptor would make the child dizzy and confused, but not hurt him permanently. The containment field generator would create an invisible barrier that blocked communication and escape. Everything was ready. "Now we wait," Raktos said to his team through their communication devices. "The human child follows patterns. He will come." And they were right. Do-hyun's afternoon classes ended, and Hyunsik sent a message saying he would be delayed at work for another hour. The boy decided to take Baram for a quick walk to the Red Rocks, their favorite spot, before the veterinarian appointment. But there was one thing unusual about today. Baram had hurt his paw the night before, getting it caught in a door. It was not serious, just a small cut. But Hyunsik had given the badger a mild sedative to keep him calm while the wound healed. The medicine made Baram drowsy and slow, dulling the sharp edge of his instincts. As Do-hyun and Baram headed toward the rocky outcrop, the boy chatted happily about his day, not noticing the slight shimmer in the air around them. The Vraxians watched from their hidden positions, weapons ready, their reptilian hearts beating with the thrill of the hunt. Baram stumbled slightly, his head heavy from the medication. He tried to stay alert, tried to fight through the fog in his mind, but the sedative was strong. His eyes drooped, and his usually sharp senses were dulled. The boy and the badger reached the rocks. Do-hyun climbed onto a large boulder, while Baram, exhausted from fighting the medicine, curled up in his carrying box attached to Do-hyun's backpack. The badger's eyes closed, his body finally giving in to the sedative. Raktos smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The prey was alone and even the small pet was asleep. "Perfect," he gave the signal. The Vraxians moved in. The twin suns of Taeyang 7 hung low in the orange sky as Do-hyun ran across the red dirt outside the colony dome. His small feet kicked up dust with each step, and his laughter echoed across the empty wasteland. Behind him, a strange creature followed, keeping pace with the 8-year-old boy despite its short legs. Bahram was not like other animals. He looked like a honey badger from Earth with thick black and white fur, but he was different in ways that most people could not see. His eyes held an unusual brightness, a sign of the intelligence that humans had given him in a laboratory years ago. Scientists had changed him, made him smarter and stronger, before they decided such experiments were wrong and stopped making creatures like him. The boy stopped running and turned to face his companion. Bahram trotted up to him and made a chirping sound, softer than his usual growls. Do-hyun reached down and scratched behind the badger's ears exactly where he liked it most. "Good boy, Bahram," Do-hyun said with a wide smile. "You're getting faster every day." New soul stations stretched behind them, a collection of white domes connected by covered walkways. 300 people called this remote mining colony home. They had come to this distant planet to dig valuable minerals from deep beneath the ground. The work was hard, the days were long, and the planet was far from Earth. But the people here had made it their home. Do-hyun lived with Hyun-sik, a man who had become like a father to him after his real parents died in an accident at another colony. Hyun-sik was old, maybe 50 years, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much sadness. He had been a soldier once, an engineer who built weapons and machines for the military. But he left that life behind after pirates killed his family during a raid on a transport ship. When Hyun-sik found the young Do-hyun alone and scared at a refugee center, something in the old man's heart softened. He took the boy in, gave him a home, and tried to fill the empty spaces in both their lives. A year later, when Hyun-sik learned about the abandoned military animals being given away, he adopted Bahram as a puppy and brought him home as a gift for Do-hyun. The bond between the boy and the badger had been instant and deep. Bahram followed Do-hyun everywhere, slept at the foot of his bed, and watched over him with fierce devotion. Even though Bahram was small, barely reaching Do-hyun's knee, everyone in the colony knew not to threaten the boy. The badger had a reputation for being fearless and aggressive when protecting his young friend. Hyun-sik appeared at the dome entrance waving at them. "Do-hyun, dinner time. Come back inside." The boy waved back and started jogging toward home with Bahram trotting alongside him. The colony's main dome housed most of the living quarters, including the small apartment that Hyun-sik and Do-hyun shared. It was not much, just 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a common area, but it was warm and safe. Inside, Hyun-sik had prepared a simple meal of rice, vegetables, and synthetic protein. The colony could not grow much fresh food, so most of what they ate came from the supply ships that visited every few months. Still, Hyun-sik tried his best to make the food taste good. As they ate, Hyun-sik watched Do-hyun feed small pieces of meat to Bahram under the table. The old man smiled but said nothing. The badger had his own food bowl, but he always preferred what Do-hyun gave him by hand. "How was your day?" Hyun-sik asked, pushing his own food around his plate. "Great. Bahram and I explored the red rocks near the east fence. We found a cool cave, but I didn't go inside because you told me not to go in dark places alone." Hyun-sik nodded approvingly. "Good boy. This planet has many dangers. The caves might have unstable ground or dangerous animals. Always be careful, even with Bahram protecting you." Do-hyun looked down at his companion, who was licking his chops after finishing the meat. "Bahram can protect me from anything, right?" The old man's expression grew serious. "Bahram is very special, yes. The scientists made him strong and smart. But he is still small, and the universe has many threats bigger than both of you. That is why you must always stay close to the colony and come home before dark." After dinner, Do-hyun did his homework on his tablet while Bahram curled up on a cushion nearby. The boy studied math and science, subjects that would help him if he chose to become a miner or engineer like most people on the colony. But Do-hyun often dreamed of becoming a pilot, flying between stars and visiting distant worlds. As night fell, the temperature outside dropped quickly. Taeyang 7 had no atmosphere thick enough to hold heat, so the days were hot and the nights were freezing. The colony domes kept the inside warm and comfortable, protecting the humans from the harsh environment. Hyun-sik tucked Do-hyun into bed and checked the window seals, an old habit from his military days. Bahram jumped onto the bed and circled twice before settling at Do-hyun's feet. his usual sleeping spot. "Sleep well, little one," Hyunsik said softly, turning off the light. "Tomorrow is another day." In the darkness, Do-yun stared at the ceiling, watching the shadows move as lights from the mining equipment outside passed by the window. He thought about his parents sometimes, trying to remember their faces, but the memories grew fainter each year. Hyunsik and Baram were his family now, and he loved them both. The colony was quiet at night, except for the constant hum of machinery and the occasional sound of transport vehicles moving ore from the mines to the processing center. Most people slept during these hours, resting before another long day of work. In the security office, 2 guards watched screens showing camera feeds from around the colony perimeter. Nothing moved in the wasteland except dust blown by the thin wind. The planet seemed empty and dead, exactly as it had been for the past 3 years since the colony was established. High above, beyond the orange sky and thin atmosphere, something moved in the darkness of space. A ship sleek and predatory in design drifted silently in orbit around Taiyang 7. Inside that ship, eyes that were not human watched the colony below with cold interest. The ship had traveled far to reach this remote planet. Its crew had specific orders, specific goals. They were hunters, and they had come looking for prey. The galaxy was vast, filled with thousands of species, but these hunters had developed a taste for hunting the most challenging targets. They had come for humans. The ship's commander studied the scans of New Sol Station, counting the heat signatures of the people inside the domes. 300 targets, most of them adults, but a few smaller signatures stood out. Children. The commander's scaled lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. Young prey was the most prized in their culture. It showed skill and daring to capture a juvenile from under the protection of adults. Such a trophy would bring great honor and respect. The commander's clawed finger traced one particular heat signature on the screen, a small form in one of the residential domes. Tomorrow, the hunt would begin. But the hunters made one critical mistake in their planning. They saw the small heat signature next to the child's bed and dismissed it as insignificant. Just a pet, they thought. Nothing to concern warriors. Of their skill and experience, they had no idea what a honey badger was. They had no idea what humans had made Baram into, and they had no idea that threatening Do-yun would wake something inside that small creature that even military scientists had feared. The night passed peacefully in New Sol Station. Do-hyun dreamed of flying between stars. Hyunsik slept fitfully, old nightmares mixing with new worries, and Baram dozed lightly, one ear always listening, one part of his enhanced brain always alert for danger. Above them, the Predator ship prepared for the hunt, its crew confident and eager. They had hunted many species across many worlds. They had weapons, technology, and experience on their side, but they had never met a human's best friend. They had never faced the fury of a creature that loved without limit and protected without fear. They were about to learn a lesson that would cost them dearly. The stage was set. The players were in position, and morning would bring changes that none of them could imagine.